The Cooler Master NR200P is the first ITX case that I've checked out on this channel. It's an incredibly affordable, pretty compact, and a super clean and minimal looking chassis that seems to just have endless customization, with pretty much everything being able to come apart with just a handful of screws. It makes it one of the most user-friendly ITX cases out there for first-timers looking to get into the small form factor community. At less than £90 for the NR200P and around £70 for the NR200, Cooler Master has absolutely nailed the price of this chassis. I opted for the NR200P, which has the TG panel, but after installing my components in it and with having turned the system on, annoyingly, I think I prefer it with the mesh panel that we've got on here. The good thing about the mesh panel is that you only really see the lighting and you don't see anything else, which is quite cool. You don't see your bad cable management. You don't really see where you've got cables running across things. You just kind of see the lights and the glow, which is kind of nice. Anyway, the NR200 is available in an absolute plethora of color choices: pink, purple, gray, white, black, and more. No matter where you want to sneak this tiny little compact PC, you'll be sure to find a color option to match your setup. The case is also available in a max option, which includes an 850 watt PSU with pre-routed cables and a 280mm all-in-one liquid cooler, a PCI Gen 4 riser cable, as well as slightly reconfigured interior which only allows for vertical GPU mounting, all of which is available for around the £320 price mark, which may sound expensive, but when you add in the cost of an 850 watt SFX PSU, a 280mm AIO, and the Gen 4 riser, it's actually pretty competitively priced. But let's get back to this case, the NR200P. It includes two 120mm PWM Cooler Master sickle flow fans and two fan guards as well. A great inclusion for an ITX case, as cables and cable management is always extremely difficult when you are limited for space like this. Those two fans mount at the top of the case toollessly, which is great, but I have seen some of them move or become slightly loose from their intended position whilst I've been moving this thing around. And perhaps over time, gravity may even take its toll and cause them to come completely detached. But as they become slightly looser, they tend to rattle a bit and make an annoying droning noise when at low RPM. So it is kind of obvious. But when they are fully attached and fully in place like they are right now, they are pretty much silent. This PC has been running next to me for the last 10 minutes or so, and it is pretty much whisper quiet. For me, it would be good if there was at least options for screws at the top, as it would just give me a little bit more peace of mind. Other included accessories include the option to switch between the tempered glass panel or the mesh side panel, only with the P or Max variant. You also get an included miniature little PCI riser cable for mounting the GPU vertically. Unfortunately though, the riser is only Gen 3 with the 200p versions, so you will either have to replace it for a Gen 4 one if you want at an extra cost, or you could just change the settings in your BIOS to set your PCI slot to Gen 3. For I/O, the NR200 has two front USB-A ports, a power and reset button, as well as the combined microphone and audio jack. Around the rear of the case is where you can see the relocated power connector, which runs through the inside of the case towards the front where you install your power supply. On the rear, you'll also see there's three PCI slots at the bottom for GPU mounting, so cards up to 3 slots will fit down there if need be. And the two vertical PCI slots, obviously for vertical GPU mounting. Moving inside the case and the actual build experience was a bit of a breeze, if I'm honest. Being able to remove every single panel you could possibly want or need to makes the build process so much easier when working in such a confined space. The side panels and front panel are all removable without any tools and click to the frame with some small pegs. The top panel and bottom panel only need one screw each to remove them, as they're also held in with several pegs. Even the feet are replaceable, and you can 3D print your own if you check Cooler Master's website for those files. I opted for perhaps the most common and the easiest way of installing your components, making use of a tower cooler and installing the GPU at the bottom in a traditional horizontal manner. Being able to easily remove parts of the case for installation makes things so much easier. It means you can focus on one part at a time and then bring them all together. When it comes to managing your cables though, the NR200P has a bit of room around the back to hide some of the fan cables, but your bulky PSU cables will have to go across the front of your motherboard, which is a little bit annoying. One tiny thing that I am a huge fan of though is the fact that they grouped all the front panel connectors into a nice little block. So you can just push them all in together and not spend 40 minutes of your life trying to poke them in with tiny little pointy nose pliers. There isn't really much going on at the rear of the case other than access to your rear mounted M.2 slot if you have one, where the cables poke out of the bottom of the power supply. If you can't bend them tight enough, they can start to push on the GPU and cause some pretty bad sag. Nobody likes things when things start to sag, especially if you spend a lot of money on them. Now obviously a lot of this is all going to vary wildly depending on your choice of components and positioning of each thing, but I'm going to just let you know what can be done. But if you've got a plan in mind, make sure you check the Cooler Master NR200P product page to guarantee compatibility with your hardware. Now, if your GPU is 2.5 slots or thinner, then you do have the option to install some slim 120mm fans at the bottom too. I did do this later on to see what difference it'd make, and I think you'll be quite surprised how much they bring the temperatures down. If you do opt for vertical mounting your GPU, you can easily fit fans and even a radiator at the bottom if you wish. At the top, you can fit up to two 120mm fans, and if you make use of the included bracket, you can also mount two 120 or two 140mm fans and a radiator on the side of the case as well. Believe it or not, there is even room for a little 92mm fan at the rear as well. As far as physical dimensions for cooler heights, GPU lengths, and things like that are concerned, I will show them on screen for you right now. But again, if you've got something in mind or a certain component in mind, please check the website first for compatibility. As a result of not checking the website like this dum-dum right here on your screen, I've now seen that my CPU tower cooler is currently at the perfect height for the mesh panel, but it's probably just a millimeter too tall for the glass panel, and it actually touches the glass and doesn't quite fit as nice as I'd want it to. If I had low profile RAM, I'd probably be fine as I didn't have to push the fan out a little bit, but I don't, so it kind of pushes on the glass panel a bit. Now let's talk about the most important part. Temperatures inside the NR200P. During a combined load with MSI combustor GPU test and CPU burner, and with the glass panel installed, the NR200P had our CPU temperature peak at 79 degrees Celsius. Swapping the glass panel for the mesh panel brings our temperatures down by 5 to 74 degrees. Nothing to be sniffed at. Meanwhile, our GPU temperature peaked at 70 degrees with the glass panel installed, but only dropped by 1 degree to 69 when the mesh panel was installed. Nice. Adding those two slim 120mm fans to the bottom of the case though is where things take a pleasant turn. I used these cheap A-Casa PWM fans that I had lying around, but if you're looking for a good cheap option, I did manage to find these Arctic P12 ones for around £6 each. Adding the two fans at the bottom of the case saw our CPU peak at just 70 degrees with the mesh panel installed and 75 degrees with the glass panel installed. The GPU also saw a drop in temperature to 65 degrees with both the glass and mesh side panels installed. Overall though, I'm really happy with the NR200P for the price that it costs. There are plenty of compromises to be made for the optimal cooling solution, whether you go with an AIO and ditch the glass panel, or mount the radiator and exhaust out the top, or even if you vertically mount the GPU and go for a small downdraft cooler. There are tons of options and tons of customization to be made here. If you are considering going with an AIO cooler for the CPU and your GPU is fairly slim, do consider the NR200P Max, as that is a pretty decent value for the price that it costs. The overall build quality of the NR200P isn't quite perfect though. Where all the panels are attached with just using the push pins, there's a bit of wiggle room and movement with all of the panels, especially the top one where the power button is located. It would be nice if there were some extra screws just to tighten things down once you're happy and remove some of that wiggle, but then I guess it would no longer be toolless. If you're looking at shrinking your system or building a compact gaming rig, then I think the NR200 and NR200P are the benchmark for what you should be looking for. What do you guys think? Could this be your next ITX case? Or if you'd like me to check out any other cases like this, let me know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like. And if my face hasn't offended you, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below. If you're interested in checking out the NR200P and any extras I may have mentioned, make sure to check the description down below for the Amazon affiliate links. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Cheers.